Good evening. This is BelGeode, and we are back with some more X-Plane 11 in virtual reality. Howdy folks, and we are back here in X-Plane 11, and tonight we're going to do part 5 of our 6-part Orbx Florida tour. So if you remember the last part, we left off in Tampa, Florida at this airport right here, Tampa International Airport. You may notice this time around it looks a little bit different than it did the last time that we were here. I actually downloaded an updated version of the airport. The link, of course, will be in the video description below. So it does look a little bit different from the last time that we brought the Robinson R22 down here. All right, so for tonight's leg, we are going to what I consider my hometown, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And we're going to be flying down south to Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport in this bad boy right here. This is the RWDesign Cessna Citation Mustang, and I have been raving about this one all over Facebook every chance that I get. I just love this aircraft, and as you can see, we've got some folks here. This is Fred.
Hi, folks.
And Fred will be joining us along with some VIP passengers that we have in the back that I will be introducing to you a little bit later. But before I do everything else, I do want to get this out of the way. First and foremost, this particular episode is being recorded on OBS on X-Plane 11.50 with Vulkan turned on. Now this is actually the beta 4 version of 11.50 that I'm currently using. This is the latest update as of the time of this recording. And the reason why I'm doing that is I kind of want to show you the difference in the improvement. It may or may not be visible in the video because I'll be honest with you, here in Tampa in the Orbx TrueEarth scenery, it's still killing my FPS, even with Vulkan turned on and, you know, everything optimized the way that I would like to have it. We're still losing FPS, but it's not going to be nearly as bad as it was in the end of the Robinson video, where we actually dropped down to about 10 or 11 frames per second, which was virtually a slideshow. So again, my apologies to you on that video. Since we're departing from here, we should only have lower FPS around the Tampa area. Once we get past Tampa and, you know, get up to our cruise altitude, things will be different, and then you will start to see some of the smoothness that is now available with this version of X-Plane, which is still in beta, by the way. And remember, beta is beta. Expect bugs, and don't forget to report bugs if you are in fact using the beta. All right, but with that disclaimer out of the way, let's do what we've been doing in the last few legs. I pop up the map here, and we're not actually going to use the map to show our route, but we're going to kind of use it as a segue to go to SkyVector so that I can show you the route that we're going to be taking today from Tampa, Florida on the west coast, the Gulf Coast of Florida, all the way down and across the state to Fort Lauderdale. Okay, so we're back on SkyVector, and today's route is going to look a little bit funky. So we're starting, of course, in the upper left corner of your screen at Kilo Tango Papa Alpha or Tampa International, and we're going to be heading due south to Sarasota's VOR, Sierra Romeo, Quebec. Now, once we reach Sarasota, we're going to dogleg a little bit to the left and, of course, follow the coastline south towards Fort Myers. Fort Myers Airport is Kilo Romeo Sierra Whiskey. When we reach there, we're going to make another left, and we're going to go across the Florida Everglades underneath Lake Okeechobee and begin our descent into the waypoint Heat, or Hotel Echo Alpha Tango Tango. Once we reach Heat, we're going to make a sharp right, a 90-degree turn, and we're going to take it down to Fort Sioux, which is the beginning of our approach into Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport, or Kilo Foxtrot X-Ray Echo. So that is the route that we're going to be taking tonight for our leg. Okay, so now that we know where we are going, now we can go ahead and get started. And I've actually taken the liberty of doing the magic of editing here, and I've gotten through our engine pre-start checklist here using Avatab. You will notice that I do have Avatab currently running here in the sim. All right, that's pretty much essential. I have to have Avatab even on the beta version, so yeah, and thankfully it works. Okay, so our pre-flight inspection is complete. Our wheel chocks are removed. Doors are all closed. We confirm that in the outside shot. The beacon light switch is on. Air conditioning switch is currently off. Air conditioning switch is this bad boy right here. ICAS, we're going to check. And that's down here. Oil pressure left and right. PS heater left and right. Okay, that's what should be on currently. Battery voltage, we're going to check. Currently have 26 volts, so yeah, that should be enough for an engine start. All right, so let's go ahead and get it started here. The engine start buttons, we're going to press, and then we're going to put the throttle to idle. We'll monitor the engine instruments, and then we'll check the amps and voltage. So here's how we're going to do it. There are, of course, two engines on this. So we're going to use our trusty little touch controller, and we're going to hit switch number 1. You can see it's lit up there, and we will watch to make sure that everything starts going up, and once it reaches right about there, we will put the left throttle into idle. Alright, so we'll make sure that we've got a good start. We'll wait for the light to extinguish, and yes, that appears to be a good start on engine number 1. Alright, so now we can begin with engine number 2, so we'll push the little start button there. Wait for everything to start rising. Yep, it is starting to come up, so let's go ahead and get that to idle. And we'll wait for that to come up. Alright, and it looks like we still have about 25 volts to spare on the battery, so we're doing good. We're doing really, really good. Okay, so everything is up and running. We've checked all of that. Exterior lights as required. We've already had our exterior lights on. The only thing we will need to do is, of course, turn on our taxi lights. So we'll need to pull this to its middle position. Windshield anti-ice switches as required. It's kind of a warm spring day, so I may forego that. I don't think we'll need it. Press cont goes to normal. That is on this side here. That's air conditioning and whatnot, so we'll go ahead and turn that on because it is a little bit hot in this cockpit. Press cont is in normal. That's the switch on the right-hand side there. Sorry, Fred, didn't mean to get into your personal bubble there.
Oh, you're fine, sir.
All right, everything looks good with that. Elevator trim, check and set. We want to set that to normal or takeoff trim, so we're actually going to trim it down in this aircraft a little bit. There we go. All right, flight controls, free and correct. So you know what that is. That is going to be our little controls wipeout. For that, we will go outside. We will also check the flaps and speed brakes while we're out there. Okay, so it looks like everything checks out, so we'll go over the rest of our checklist here. So with flaps are set, we have them in takeoff flaps currently. Speed brakes are retracted, altimeter is set, CAS messages have all been checked. Parking brake, we'll release that when we are ready to taxi. All right, let's close this down since we no longer need this. I took the liberty of setting our transponder to standby, so we'll change that to alt just before we take off, and then we'll set up our PFD here with like the winds and so on. So that way we'll have that information on hand. We're checking our fuel. We've got 10-20 pounds in each tank, both wing tanks, so that should be more than enough for us to make it to Fort Lauderdale today. And I've taken the liberty of pulling up our flight plan, which I will show you right here. So we're going to be going, as I said, from Tampa to Sarasota, south to Fort Myers, and then across the Everglades, just south of Lake Okeechobee, to come in at Fort Lauderdale Executive. And since I happen to know what the winds are going to be once we get to Fort Lauderdale Executive, I've even managed to pull up the proper approach for us. So that'll save us a lot of time on this flight. All right, but let's go ahead and get rid of that. And actually, let me pull it up on this screen right here. There we go. So that way we'll have at a glance how many miles we need to go in order to get to each waypoint. All right. So with that having been done, we are pretty much set to go. All right. So Fred, I will handle the taxi duties here. You just sit there and look pretty. And we are going to be taking off on runway 28. So we're going to be flying to the west, which also means we need to taxi down that way. So let's go ahead and make our way there. We'll put the parking brake off and we'll give it a little bit of power. See if we start moving here. There we go. We are rolling. And before we hit this beach, let's go ahead and just turn. All right. So yes, Tampa International Airport. Even though this is an updated scenery, it does seem to be eating a little bit of FPS. Not nearly as bad as, you know, some of the really high-end custom scenery. After all, this was only a freeware scenery that I picked up. But remember that the real culprit in this mess right now is Orbx. So keep that into consideration whenever you are actually using X-Plane 11.50. Remember, it's currently in beta, but once it goes live, once it becomes officially stable, hopefully Orbx will have some kind of an update for this TrueEarth Florida that will kind of make it a little bit easier on the FPS, because right now, I'm not going to lie to you folks, it is pretty ridiculous. Is really ridiculous. Normally I would go to the outside view and do a quick cinematic flyby and whatnot, but you know what? I'm not even going to bother with it this time because I know what it's going to look like in the finished video. And even though kind of the point of this is to show you areas where Orbx is good and where they're lacking, nobody really wants to see a slideshow after all, do they? Alright, so we're going to do the magic of editing and we will come back just as we are holding short at runway 28. Alright, well hopefully that did not take too long. We are here at runway 28 and you can see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers stadium again. And we're just about to round the corner and then hold short in preparation for our final checks and our takeoff. So let's round this bend right here. And I have noticed that if the camera is pointing towards Tampa Bay itself, the FPS does tend to be a little bit better. So clearly it's all the conglomeration of Orbx scenery objects that we've got here that's causing our slowdown. Now, couple that with the fact that Vulkan is still pretty much in its infancy here. This is the first iteration of Vulkan that we're seeing. We kind of expect that, yeah, while there will be a performance increase, and so far there has been in a lot of places that I've flown, obviously there's still areas for improvement. All right, but that is neither here nor there. Right now we've got to prepare for takeoff, so we're going to set up our anti-collision lights, our strobe lights if you prefer, and we'll get our landing lights on. And I think they're all the way up. Yep, there we go. Alright, anti-skid is on, passenger safety switch is on. You know what, let me turn this panel lights on. It's easier for me to see, especially when the shadows get in the way there. And of course, our transponder we're going to set to alt. And we'll go back. Alright, there we go. Alright, we are pretty much set to go, so let's go ahead and take the active since we know that there are no aircraft in the area. Parking brakes off. I will caution you, this thing does tend to fly like a rocket ship. Once we take off and get the heck out of here, you will be amazed at just how quickly this thing can get up to speed and up to altitude. Really, we're probably going to take off shortly after about 100 knots. That's how little speed we need for takeoff in this bird. So I will show you that momentarily. Alright, let's get our lineup going here, and then we'll get brakes on. And of course, throttles up. Alright, parking brake is on. Remove the parking brake, and we'll keep the regular wheel brakes on here. Alright, no time like the present. Let's do it, folks. And brakes off. Here we go. Full power. Waiting for the airspeed to come alive. There it is. Airspeed is alive. Waiting for about 100 knots. That'll be our takeoff speed. So far, so good. Don't see any caution and warning lights, so we're good to go. This is not a rejected takeoff. We are a little wobbly, however. Okay, there we go. 100, and let's pull up. Nice and easy. And we'll go to the outside. Okay, so far so good. We've got a pretty good takeoff here, and I'm going to go ahead and engage our lateral navigation so that way we can start heading on course as we pass over Tampa and St. Petersburg. So there we go. Say goodbye to Orbx St. Pete and Tampa. There's a causeway there. And we're going to pass MacDill Air Force Base on our way out. While I'm at it, though, let me put my throttle into climb. There we go. That way it'll be a little bit more economical here. And we can also go ahead and zoom this out a little bit here. Want to get at least one leg as part of the moving map there. Alright, so there we can see Orbx Tampa, and already I can tell that the FPS is starting to get a little bit better, although bear in mind I'm also running default clouds here in X-Plane, so yeah, about that. That's still an area of opportunity that Laminar Research has, and honestly I think until they actually address the atmosphere and weather engine in here, this sim will fall behind Microsoft Flight Simulator's new offering. However, we still have a long ways to go before MSFS becomes a real thing that's available for all of us to play. It is, of course, still in alpha testing. So there's still plenty of time for X-Plane to do what X-Plane needs to do. And it looks like we've got a little bit of turbulence here. Ooh, this is going to make for an interesting flight. All right, let's see if we can pull up our vertical speed a little bit more. We are going somewhat fast, and we're already at 4,500. So let me see. This is a little bit squirrely to deal with here. I don't want to go down. I want to go up. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. All right, right there's good. 2,500 feet per minute. Just until we get over 10,000 feet, at which point in time we can pull back our rate of ascent. And look, there it is. I do believe that is MacDill Air Force Base. Doesn't appear to be a lot down there, though. It's one of those default X-plane airports, so I'm sure there's really not much to show. But there it is. All right, and we're getting into the clouds. Cool beans. Okay, let's go to the outside view, and we will be right back. Alright, looks like we are finally over the cloud deck, and just in time, we are almost to 10,000 feet. We're at 8,200 and climbing nice and steadily. We're staying below 250 knots, which is even better. But this turbulence is really starting to get to me here. Not that I'm getting, motion sickness or anything like that. It's just the fact that the autopilot is basically struggling to keep this aircraft on a stable heading. That is nuts. And I only set it for like mild turbulence. Normally I use active sky for X-plane for my weather. However, since of course this is the beta version and we do not yet have word that active sky is cleared to work with 11.50 beta, I decided I might as well just make up a scenario that would be somewhat favorable, but yet still a little bit challenging. So I added mild turbulence in there, and as you can see, we're just swinging all over the place. Of course, it's probably difficult for you to tell because in VR, when my head moves, you see every subtle nuance of my head movement. So it actually makes it a little bit more turbulent than it's really looking. And yes, I did that deliberately. Alright, but now that we are just over 10,000 feet, let's go ahead and turn off our landing lights. So that is this switch here, I will remind you, and we'll just flicker all the way to the bottom. I'm also going to get our engine anti-ice switches on, just in case. I know it is Florida, and I know the temperature is kind of balmy right now. However, we can never be too careful. So, set that up. I do want to get an idea of what's going on with the winds, however, so I'm going to set up option number 1, and that'll tell us if we have a crosswind. Yep, sure enough we do. Look at that. 14 knots crosswind coming in from the right or from the west. Wow, okay. But it looks like we are getting over the weather, and you can start to see the Gulf Coast, or the Florida coastline there. So just to remind you, our first stop is going to be the VOR over by Sarasota. We've got about 14 nautical miles to get there and approximately 3 minutes. You can see on the map we're really not that far from it. It's just to the south of Tampa Bay. North on this map is pointing down, and then that means that we are pretty much heading due south. You can see our track heading there is a heading of 188. Alright, now that we're getting some stable climb here, let me go ahead and bring this back down a bit. Put it about, 1,400 feet per minute? Yeah, that should be fine. That way we'll keep our sprightly ascent going, and we should be at our cruise altitude of 20,000 feet pretty much in no time. But for now, since the weather seems to be clearing a little bit, and with it the FPS is starting to go up, let's take a quick look outside at some of the scenery just outside of Sarasota. You will, however, notice that the cloud shadows are still flickering. Laminar Research still has not managed to fix that yet, so what can I say? Eventually, we'll get it. Alright, so as we get closer to Sarasota, it looks like we've managed to pass most of the turbulence, so we should be good to go. And let's see, how much longer do we have? Oh, about 58 seconds until we make our turn. This is great. We're just over 16,000 feet. Once we get to 18,000, I will switch our barometer to its standard setting of 29.902. As you can see right now, it's on 29.904. So pretty good. Pretty dang good. One thing I do notice, aside from the cloud shadows here, is the clouds themselves. There appears to be like some slight artifacts with them here in Explain Vulkan. However, with that having been said, I'm also having problems with SkyMax Pro, which supposedly has been updated for 11.50. It seems to be giving me some issues in VR with ghosting, where it's showing like reflections of things where it shouldn't. So I've actually stopped using SkyMax Pro for now, and I've made the developers aware and told them the kind of graphics card that I have and so on and so forth, and hopefully they can fix it. Because remember, even though Explain is in the midst of an update, it does not cover any of your add-ons. So the add-ons are going to have to be addressed by the developers of said add-ons themselves. Laminar Research will not do anything to help with that. They will, of course, work with the developers, and they actually have been from the get-go. However, their major concern is the stability of the flight sim itself. So keep that in mind if you do decide to try the beta version. Remember that not all add-ons will work, and remember that it's really not up to Laminar Research to fix the add-ons, unless of course it's something with the base system that affects all add-ons that rely on it, in which case, yeah, maybe they might do that. Now, speaking of add-ons, if you are interested in finding out which add-ons are currently compatible and which add-ons are not, you may want to go to FSElite. I will have the link in the video description. FSElite is in the process of compiling a list of all the known add-ons that are currently working with Explain 11.50, and as more add-ons become official, they will be adding to that list. So that is going to be your best resource as far as which add-ons to look forward to for 11.50. Alright, looks like we're about 1,000 feet away from cruise, so let me just switch our barometric pressure here down to 29.902. About 1,000 feet late there, but hey, it's still done. And once we hit cruise, we will pull the throttle back to its cruise setting. You'll see it has one right there. And then we should be good to go. So we'll wait for that to happen. And then after that happens, we'll go back to the outside view. And then I will come back to the cockpit and give you some quick facts about the real-life aircraft that this is modeled on. Alright. We have 300 feet to go, 200 feet to go, there we go, and let's pull that throttle back. There we go. So now we should really start building up the airspeed, and that is going to be awesome because our next stop is going to be Fort Myers, Florida. But for now, let's go back to the outside view and see how much has changed and how much better the FPS has actually been. Okay, so we are at our cruise altitude of 20,000 feet, and our speed seems to be stable, roughly around 241 knots. We've got about 8 minutes and 55 seconds to go until we reach Fort Myers, and we are in a cruise setting, so this is awesome. I guess what I'll do right now is I'll take off the PAX safety switch, so that way we can walk around the cabin. And actually, I'm going to go back there in a moment, but I did promise you some quick facts on this aircraft, so here we go. First thing I can tell you is the Cessna Citation Mustang, or the Model 510. It first flew on the 23rd of April in 2005. To date, in 2017 that is, there's about 479 of those aircraft built. As you can see, it's got a crew of 1 or 2 pilots. Don't want to leave you out, Fred. And a capacity of 4 to 5 passengers. It's got a length of 40 feet 7 inches, wingspan of 43 feet 2 inches, and a height of 13 feet 5 inches. Empty weight, 5,000 pounds. Useful load of 3,130 pounds. And it's powered by 2 Pratt & Whitney Canada, I can't even read that, PW615F turbofans at 1,460 pounds thrust each. Now, what does that mean as far as speed goes? Well, it means that we've got a speed of Mach 0.63, or 777 kilometers per hour, 483 miles per hour. Our cruise speed is about 340 knots, or 390 miles per hour. We've got a range of about 1,167 nautical miles and a service ceiling of 41,000 feet. Pretty impressive for a very light jet. Alright, so those were the quick facts that I wanted to give you here. And once again, we're going to go back to the outside view, and then when we come back, I am going to go in the back and spend some time with our passengers. So, stay tuned. All right, we are back, and as promised, we are in the cabin. We're back here with Allie, and we're also here with Claire. Say hi, Claire. Or not. You could not say hi as well.
Belle, are you talking to your imaginary YouTube audience again?
They're not imaginary, Allie. They're watching us right now.
Right.
Mr. Geode, if I could have your attention for a moment, the company has had way more expenditures than we've had revenue actually generated. Why is this?
Well, we're making money, all right. The problem is Belle can't stop buying aircraft.
Hey, I resent that remark, Allie. Thank you very much.
Oh, really? Do you remember the F-14 Bravo model?
Of course I do. I love that plane.
You left it in Tonopah, Belle. Claire, it is mothballed in Tonopah.
Ooh, that is no good.
We just haven't gone back to get it yet. I swear to you, Claire, we're going back to Tonopah eventually to pick it up.
And this MV-22B, was this also necessary, sir?
This line of questioning is unnecessary. Those aircraft are now hard to find. They're kind of like collector's items.
Yes, just like the 707 and the DC-8. It doesn't mean you have to buy them all, Belle. You've got a problem.
This most recent entry here is an Avro Vulcan? Sir, was this really necessary?
Damn, these clouds look good. Holy crap, what a beautiful day it is today.
Belle, tell me you did not just pick up an Avro Vulcan. Are you out of your mind? How in the hell are we going to afford all of this stuff?
I'm afraid Miss Shrike is right, sir. By my calculations, our company will go bankrupt within 6 months.
Nah. See, I'm doing enough air shows. I think your numbers are off. We'll be fine.
I swear to God, Belle, if there's such a thing as Aircrafts Anonymous, I'm putting you in it.
Oh, dear God, just shoot me now. Put me out of my misery.
I'm afraid that's not possible, sir. At the rate at which we're going, we can't afford the bullets with which to shoot you.
What a pity that is.
All right, you know what? I'm going back to the cockpit. Okay, well, clearly that was a bad idea.
I could have told you that was going to happen, sir. Your fiancée is, after all, a redhead.
You know what, Fred? Nobody asked you. Just sit pretty and fly the aircraft, okay?
I'm just saying, sir. But yes, I can do that.
Thank you. All right, continuing our little flight here. So we are currently at Fort Myers, and we're making the turn to head east over the Florida Everglades. And the Florida Everglades, of course, is one of the larger wildlife refuges, I guess you would say, in Florida. It has been encroached upon by all sides, basically, and it's a lot smaller than it used to be. So when you hear about stories of alligators in people's backyards and so on and so forth, yeah, that's because we've actually started building in their turf. However, as we fly over the Everglades, we're also going to be flying just south of Lake Okeechobee, which you should be able to see off in the distance there. It is, of course, the largest lake in Florida. You can even see it from space. It is pretty much that big. So, yeah, there it is, right there. And we're going to be heading to the Atlantic coast, so let me just kind of zoom us out here. And that way you can see it. Alright, so there we go. So that is Lake Okeechobee right there, and you can see it is a massive freaking lake, and everything's still loading up on the G1000, but that's okay. So our next stop is going to be Heat Waypoint, which is just off the coast, just south of West Palm Beach. You can see Palm Beach International Airport there, Kilo Papa Bravo India, and then we're going to be hanging that right. And of course, we're going to be hanging another right to come in at Fort Lauderdale Exec. Now, we've got about 15 minutes flying time until we reach the heat. So when we get down to about 10 minutes flying time is when I will begin our descent from 20,000 feet. And we're going to pull it all the way down to roughly about 2,000 feet, which will be our approach altitude. And then once we begin our turns and start coming in for final, I'll go ahead and activate our approach on the procedures. You can see the little proc button right there. And then, of course, we'll bring this bird in. Okay, but we still have a fair amount of flying time to go, and I do want to point this out as well. You see this little circle that has like the green and the black? That pretty much tells us what our fuel range is. So as long as we are inside that circle, we're good to go. And you can see right now we've got 791 pounds in each tank, so we're doing pretty good. We're really doing good. This thing is very economical, and it's very thrifty with the gas. I like that. I really do like that. I doubt that I would do this thing on like a cross-country tour, like a literal across the USA tour. However, it's good to know that with the proper planning, you can. I already told you what the range of this thing is. It's well over 1,000 miles. So as long as you keep that in mind, yeah, you can definitely get a lot of joy out of this aircraft and pretty much fly it all over the place. Make sure you calculate your fuel stops, however. Alright, but enough of my yammering for right now. Let's go back to the outside view, and when we come back, we will be just south of Lake Okeechobee and ready to begin our descent. Okay, so we are just south of Lake Okeechobee, and it looks like we are right on the money, about 10 minutes and 47 seconds left. So now is a good time to do our altitude selection. And as I stated, we are going to drop it all the way down to 2,000 feet. Takes a little while for us to turn the knob here. Alright, looks like 10,000 is our first step descent here, so we'll set that up, and then as we get closer to 10,000, we'll begin dropping it even further. So, let's get our VS, and we'll start bringing her down. Let's see, right about 900 feet per minute to start with. Pull the throttle back just a touch here, because we don't want to be gaining too much speed during this descent. Alright, everything looks good there, so I can begin to lower us a little further. That's a little too much. As you can see, it is a little bit squirrely. Okay, so 1,900 feet descent. Hopefully that will not be too sprightly. As you can see, we do have cabin pressure here. Right now we are at 7490, and hopefully that will not be too bad for us to descend so quickly. But yeah, see, this is what I was talking about with the Everglades. All of this area is now farmland. It's now like sugarcane fields and so on. So pretty much we've managed to encroach on the natural habitat for the denizens of the Everglades. That is not a good thing. It's not a good thing at all. If you look over there, you can see pretty much the raw, untouched Everglades begins a little bit further south and pretty much extends all the way south past Broward and Dade counties into Monroe County. But that's basically all that there is left of this, wildlife sanctuary. Everything else has been taken over by humans. So if you ask me, even though we are in the midst of this whole coronavirus pandemic, I'm starting to think that us humans are actually the virus. Maybe Agent Smith in the Matrix was right all along. I don't know. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Let's go back to the outside view, and we'll stop waxing poetically about the state of human affairs. Okay, so now that we are in a pretty decent descent here, you can see we are just over 14,000 feet, and unfortunately, we don't know what the weather brief is for Fort Lauderdale executives, so we may want to punch that up right about now. Now, I don't think I have it programmed into my COM 1, so what we'll need to do is the same thing that we've done in previous episodes, and that is we'll need to open up the map. There it is. Took a little while to open up there. It was a little slow. Thankfully, we do not have traffic global, so there's a lot less things to uncheck. But we want to find Kilo Foxtrot X-Ray Echo, and we're going to click on that, get the details. Our ATIS is 119.850. Okay, remember that, 119.850. Alright, so we'll close that. And we'll change our COM 119er, and this is already on 800, so we'll just bump it up to 850. There it is, and we'll listen for Betty.
Fort Lauderdale Executive Information Golf. 2000 Zulu weather. Wind 270 at 7, visibility more than 10.
Not bad.
Sky conditions 3100 scattered, temperature 22. Dew point -3. Altimeter 2994.
Okay.
Arriving runways 2731, departing runways 2731. Advise on initial contact you have golf.
All right, that is the information that we needed. Thank you very much, Betty. And let's go ahead and start dropping ourselves down in altitude. Okay, so I was able to wrestle it down, so we are, of course, going down to 2,000 feet at a rate of 1,500 feet per minute. We're just about to break 10,000, so let's get our passenger safety switch back on, and we'll also turn our landing lights on. So there we go. Alright, so next stop is going to be the coast, and I want to zoom in my G1000 just a touch here. There we go. Now we can start to see all the various airports. So we've got Palm Beach International there. We've got Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International down there. We've got North Hollywood Airport, or Perry Airport, I think it's sometimes called. And various other miscellaneous airports in between, like Boca Raton and Pompano and so on and so forth. This is the area that I grew up in. So this is really the area that I ultimately call home, at least in the United States. So there we go. All right, I'm thinking that we need to pull the power back somewhat because we seem to be going into the yellow. So let me just drop it down there. And we're probably going to want to set up our procedures as well. So let's go proc. We already have the approach selected. So I'm thinking we should just be able to go activate approach, and that should do the trick. But let's take a quick look at the approach. So ZMAV is the waypoint that I put in there, but Forsu is actually the waypoint that we're going to be flying towards. That's going to be the start of our approach. So once we get over the shore, and once we make that turn from heat, I'll go ahead and activate Forsu, and we will bring this baby home. In the meantime, look at that. This is where the civilization officially begins. And I do have to give Orbx props on this. The FPS drop is not too terrible in this part of Florida. I'm really thankful for that. Of course, the clouds kind of humbug that a little bit because of the fact that I've got it set to scattered clouds. They are tending to rob my FPS a little bit. But I can honestly say that coming down in this thing right now over an area that I am very familiar with does look pretty dang cool. So mad props to Orbx on that one. All right, what are we looking at here? 7,200 feet. And I can already see the coastline, the Atlantic seaboard there, and there's the intracoastal waterway. Looking good. Absolutely looking good. I love it. I think that's Boca Raton Airport down there, if I'm not too mistaken. Yeah, there should be a highway right next to it as well, I-95. Cool beans. So if I wanted to, I could actually do a lot of VFR flying in this neck of the woods, and it would really be accurate. That's mainly the point behind getting the Orbx scenery. Of course, MSFS does tout the same thing. However, that one is not quite ready. I'm sure it will definitely look better than this. We don't know yet just how well things will perform. Like I said, it's still in alpha, so nothing has really been optimized as of yet. And of course, I can't tell you anything about the alpha. I can only tell you based on my experiences in Seattle. But it'll be interesting to see. For the time being, though, since we are in X-Plane, this is where I'm going to concentrate my energies. And I have to say, out of all of the Orbx scenery that I've had, this one is probably the one that appeals to me the most. Now, if only I could convince Orbx to do a Caribbean scenery, in particular, Jamaica. That would absolutely make my year. All right, we're about to fly over the coastline, so let's go back to the outside view, and we will prepare to bring this bird in. Okay, so we are just over 4,000 feet, and we've got about 46 seconds to go until we make our turn. So let me zoom this in one more notch. And we're going to stand by on the proc. Put that up to activate approach. Oh, actually, I need to use this. There we go, and we are now beginning our approach, so let's hit enter. And there it is, just like that. We are set up for our final approach into Fort Lauderdale Exec. And just in time, too, because it looks like we are within 1,000 feet of our target altitude. So this is awesome. So we're going to continue heading south a little bit here. And then we're going to make that right-hand turn. In the meantime, my task is going to be to make sure that we drop enough power so that way we can bring this sucker in. All right, and now that we're actually a little bit lower, that weird coastline, or I guess end of terrain, seems to have disappeared, and finally it's starting to look like how I remember the Atlantic Ocean to look just off the coast of Florida. All right, waiting for my baby to straighten herself out here. Looking good, and we're going to be dropping our speed really quickly here because I've got the throttle all the way down. Oh, and there's the weird-looking coastline, which is not really a coastline, but actually the end of the ortho. I stand corrected. How about them apples? But you can see the real coastline a little bit further in, so Orbx, if you are watching, this might be something you might want to address. Perhaps you want to fade this out a little bit more so it doesn't look as harsh and dramatic there. But other than that, I really haven't had too much to complain about with this scenery, so I can probably let it slide. Alright, looks like we are closing in on our flap speed. And we're about halfway to go, about 3 minutes. Not too shabby. Alright, you can see our flap speed begins right around 150. So that's what we're looking for. In the meantime, we will keep the power back a little bit here, and we'll just quickly go back to the outside view as we make our way down this base leg here. Alright, one thing is for certain, now that we are over the open ocean, the FPS has shot up like a rocket. I have also tried X-Plane 11.50 in other areas that may have just default scenery or, you know, add-ons that don't involve like a lot of autogen. For example, Papua New Guinea, one of my favorite places to fly. And I have to say the FPS there is basically through the roof. I've been getting, on average, about 40 FPS. And bear in mind, that is in VR and with recording. Pretty much double that if you get VR out of the equation and, of course, turn off OBS. So if you are a non-VR user, you are probably going to be most pleased with the performance. But even us VR users are going to be pretty pleased with what we're seeing so far. There have been some issues, but I think a lot of the issues that have come about have been related to what people have installed with their X-Plane and what their expectations are, which oftentimes you can run into problems if you have expectations of things that are actually add-ons as opposed to the base sim. If you are planning on trying the beta, my suggestion to you would be to make a second install of your X-Plane 11. It's easy enough to do. Just go into your main X-Plane 11 folder and you will see the X-Plane installer. It's an updater program as well. It will offer you the option to put in a second copy of X-Plane, and my suggestion would be to do that on a different hard drive, an SSD if you have one available. Once you do that, you'll then use that same updater to turn that new install into a beta install. Once you have it set up at beta, run it for a little while just as its default state and see what kind of performance you get. Then over time you can use shortcuts or symbolic linking to bring in like your favorite scenery, much like I have done here with Orbx, and of course your favorite aircraft you can just copy right into the aircraft folder. Alright, that helps you if you are on standalone. If you are on Steam, then the procedure is a little bit different, but you will have to forgive me. I do not use Steam for X-Plane, so I'd rather not go into all the things that you need to do. But suffice to say, from what I'm hearing, it's pretty easy to do. Alright, I do not know why all of a sudden my map is off kilter there. Something's not right with that. I don't know what the story is there, but I am going to go ahead and slide that over a little bit here. Alright, so we are just about at 153. I'm going to pull the power back a bit more so that way we can get the flaps out. We're stable at 2,000. We haven't yet picked up the glide slope, so we're doing pretty good. Drop flaps 1. There's only 2 stages of flaps on this sucker. And the aircraft will automatically trim itself. Okay. In fact, if we wanted to, we could probably just set up our approach. Yeah, I think that should work. Let me just hit that. Okay. Now we are in an approach mode. This is perfect. This is perfect. Alright, so flaps are down 1 notch. Once I see the runway at Fort Lauderdale Exec, we will go down to 2 notches and of course put our gear out. In the interim, however, you know what we're going to do. We'll go back to the outside as we come over the shoreline. Okay, so we are just beginning our descent, and I do have eyes on the runway, so we'll go ahead and get our gear down. Gear is unlocked and coming down. And looks like we've got 3 green, so everything is kosher. And finally, let's get flaps 2. Of course, we're going to balloon up a little bit here. I'm hoping this will not mess up our descent. We are going to give it a little bit of power so that way we don't go below 110. Alright, so there is our airport. Everything is looking good. The plan of attack is once we get down to about 500 feet, we'll hand fly it on in. And that should be good for government work. There's our coastline. There's Fort Lauderdale. You can see downtown Fort Lauderdale off in the distance there. And of course, just south of that is Fort Lauderdale International Airport. This is pretty cool. This is a homecoming for me. I love this. I absolutely love this. So just to remind you, our next leg is going to be our final leg for this Orbx tour. I know it's been a long and in some cases exhausting tour. But we're going to be going to my absolute favorite place in Florida, Key West. I can't think of a better place to actually end the Orbx tour. I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed the previous 4 episodes and, of course, this episode that we're currently wrapping up right now. And I do promise you a fun and exciting episode for the very last leg of the tour. Now, what are we going to do after that? Well, more than likely, we're still going to mess around here in X-Plane 11.50, but we'll probably go to another part of the world, probably back to places like Papua and other places that I have yet to show you. But we'll cross that bridge once we get to it. For now, it looks like we are still on glide slope and we're doing pretty good here. We've got our flaps down full and we've got our gear out. So let's quickly go to the outside view, make sure everything is looking kosher before I begin our short final. Okay, everything looks good. We are at 700 feet, just about. So once we reach 500, I don't remember if there's a call out in this aircraft. It might call out, it might not. I really don't remember if it comes with it. But regardless, we are going to take it off of autopilot once we reach 500, and we're going to hand fly the rest of it in. So far, this thing has been a beauty. I have thoroughly enjoyed this aircraft. Alright, just about 500 now, so let's go ahead and kill the autopilot. Autopilot is now off. Flight director is still on, however. Let's go ahead and turn that off. And we're still on glide slope. We're properly trimmed. We're doing good. This is great. And I got my finger on the button for the spoilers. There's no real way to arm the spoilers on this one, but we'll make sure that we pull that out once we get to it. Alrighty folks, strap in. It is time to bring us home. We're a little bit low here, so let's go ahead and raise the nose a bit here. Alright, there we go. Now we're on glide slope. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and the Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport. Alright. 100 feet. I guess there's no call-outs on this one, but that's okay. I can live with it. Here we go. Runway 27. Pull the power back. And flare. Alright, we are down. Speed brakes are out. And we will stop, hopefully, before the end of the runway. There we go. Look at that. That is awesome. Wow, what a quick stop. I love that. Alright, speed brakes can go in. Yep, looks like they're going in now. We'll go ahead and put the flaps up. That is awesome. Okay, so our turnoff is going to be somewhere over there. And we'll figure out where to park in a moment here. Let's turn right here. Actually, this is a high-speed turnoff. So this is going to be a very funky turn. I think I can make this turn. Yeah, I don't see why not. And there is the crosswind runway. So there we go. Okay. So we will taxi straight. We'll find a good place to park over by the control tower, and then we will call this episode done. In the interim, however, let me go ahead and turn off our landing light, and we'll put it to taxi. We'll also get our anti-collision light off. That's our strobes, if you will remember. And this appears to be another high-speed turnoff, so I'm going to want to go straight. Alright, but that is just about it for me, so thank you as always. Just to remind you, we have been flying around doing a tour of Florida in Orbx TrueEarth Florida. For the vast majority of this tour, I have actually been using the SD version, the standard definition version. The high definition version is the recommended one to get, because with the high definition you get both high def and standard def. So if you're ever in doubt, pick up the high def. Even though it's more expensive, you get the second one for free, and you can always back down to it if you find that it's stealing too much of your FPS. Alright, this is a default Fort Lauderdale executive, so there's really nothing going to be in the video description below. This is what comes with X-Plane, so there you go. And just to remind you, the aircraft that we have been using has been RWDesign Citation Mustang, Cessna Citation Mustang. Dang, English is getting difficult for me here. You can tell I am back in Florida. All right, I'm thinking we're going to turn around and we're just going to park right here, and then we will call this episode done. So once again, I really thank you for joining me on this tour. We've got one more leg left. I'm not going to spoil the surprise yet as to what aircraft I'm going to use for the last leg, but suffice to say, we are going to end kind of in the way that we began. In other words, we are going to be using something a little bit more high performance than a BizJet, shall we say. I will leave it at that. All right, so as I go through the sequence to turn everything off, I do want to thank you as always for watching. This has been BelGeode. I have been flying in X-Plane 11, and this time around it has been X-Plane 11.50 Beta 4, the fourth iteration of the current beta that introduces Vulkan, which, by the way, folks, is spelled with a K, not a C. It's V-U-L-K-A-N. Get it right, for the love of all that is holy. Sheesh. Alrighty, folks, if you enjoy what you've seen, please feel free to give me a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. I will be back with the sixth and final leg sometime really soon, and we're going to take it all the way down to the Florida Keys, which is ironic because this entire X-Plane series, which we're up to about 60-something episodes now, it all began in the Florida Keys. But I will talk to you then, folks. For now, I am going to tell you all, ciao.
Stop